Make sure your seat backs and tray tables are in their upright and locked position. This is our review of SkyTeam.
SkyTeam is a two-player cooperative dice placement game about safely landing planes at the airport, and I think you'll really love this if you're an aerophile.
I was a little skeptical about SkyTeam because A, it's co-op, and B, there are dice. However, it's just plain fun. We'll tell you all about it after this quick how to play.
SkyTeam is played over 7 rounds, with each round having 3 phases.
Phase 1 is the strategy discussion and dice rolling phase, where players plan for the upcoming round, then roll their dice in secret behind the screens.
After rolling their dice, and for the rest of the round, players must remain completely silent.
Phase 2 is dice placement, where players take turns placing their dice on free spaces of the control panel.
The majority of spaces have color or number constraints that limit which dice can be placed on each space.
The placed dice will produce different effects for the plane's axis, engines, radio, landing gear, flaps, and brakes.
Phase 3 is the end of the round, where the plane descends 1,000 feet and the players retrieve their dice from the control panel.
At the end of the final round, if the approach track has no airplanes on it, the landing gear and flaps all have green lights, the axis is horizontal, and the speed is less than the brakes, you win. Before you take off playing this game, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button.
All your likes and subscribes really help keep our channel in the air, so thank you.
When we first checked out this game at Gen Con in 2023, I was a little apprehensive about it because I saw the dice and I saw that it was cooperative. When you saw people playing, because you're not allowed to talk, you really just see 2 people sitting there staring at the board and their dice, and they're gonna put it there and you're just watching like, are these people having fun? And you can't tell because no one's talking, you're not doing anything. But that's because you're so much concentrating on what you're doing and hoping that the other player will kind of like mentally observe your strategy and be like, oh, okay, he's doing that, let me do that, let me do this. And when you actually sit down and play it, you realize how difficult it is when you have your dice and you're like, all right, I know in our strategy discussion phase, we're like, oh, we should try to kind of do these things, but then I just rolled this and I can't do anything, we strategize. So I hope that Lee knows what we're doing now.
Sometimes when you walk by games and then you pass by again, you know, you'll get different phases of it. People were like, yeah, and then a lot of talking. But this one, you're right. It seemed like every time people were just like, I could imagine, this is your character speaking. Let's just see that. Talking about the game, you know, the artwork and everything. I think this is, like I said, a very aerophile. Like, you're really gonna love this if you love planes. Like, I'm sure if they made an expansion for trains, you're gonna have those people who are like, oh my god, really? There's the train board control
rail team.
Yeah. Yeah, rail team.
Before we get into the mechanics, I do want to talk a little bit about the production value because this is such a hot game and I feel like the production value is good. It's just everything is so small. So one of the things that I didn't really like in Dinosaur World, which I really liked, is it's a little small piece and it can be lost very easily. Well, in this game, you have these little small buttons or switches that you have to push. I probably can't even see it me holding it up. And then the extra roll tokens are small. The coffee things are small. Even the little airplanes are little airplanes. They could have made it just a little bit bigger box.
One thing that I usually mention that I like about games is when they teach you something or you learn like a little bit about real life too. Now, I didn't fact check if a lot of this was how it was. Like, you have your pilot and co-pilot and they're each in charge of like maybe 2 separate systems. You got your flaps and your pitch and your yaw. So, you know, now I kind of know those. And so that kind of taught me something. So the learning part of this and seeing the different airports and stuff, I added a little bit extra for me to like it a little bit more.
So the main mechanic of the game is a dice placement. You're gonna roll your dice. It's gonna be in secret behind these little screens and you keep them hidden so that your co-pilot can't see them. And once you roll, then you're not allowed to say anything. And that's why it's a quiet game. And then I place the dice and then the co-pilot places the dice. And I place the dice and the co-pilot places the dice. And you can only place your dice on your corresponding color. So I can only place blue dice on blue. The co-pilot can only place orange dice on orange. Some of the spaces are blue or orange. And then some of the spaces have numbers, which means that if it's a blue 1 or 2, I can only place a blue 1 or 2 dice on that location to activate that ability or to activate that switch or to increase the engines or to change the horizontal axis and all those kind of things. Now there are coffee cups which can increase or decrease your number by 1. But if I'm always rolling 6s, I'm never gonna be able to use the coffee cup to get me down to 1 because there's only 3 coffee cups. It really is luck dependent, but at the same time, if your co-pilot kind of sees that you're not doing so well with the certain numbers that you need, they can kind of take some of the slack and try to help you in other areas when it comes to the axis and the engine.
The no talking part, yeah, that's really difficult because much like some of those trick-taking games, right? Like The Crew, where, okay, we can't talk, and a lot of times I'm sitting there like, I don't know what's going. I don't know what to do, and everyone else is like, he better do it. He better do it. Especially with The Crew being co-op, this is also co-op. So in your mind, you're sitting there like, oh man, he probably notices that I need help, and I'm like. There's a lot of ways or instances where when that happens, it's like, oh, we lost. Oh, look at that. Oh, we lost. All right, let's restart.
I mean, we were joking about it, but there are a lot of ways to lose in this game. At any point, if your axis goes beyond the X in the center, you lose. At the end of the game, if you're going too fast, you lose. If you don't fill up these two squares because you forgot or you're an idiot or whatever, you lose. There are a lot of ways to lose in this game. There's only one set path to win. You have to accomplish all of these tasks and never mess up. And then when you add in the extra modules that you have, it makes it even more difficult because the game comes with a flight log, and in the flight log, it has different scenarios. So there are green scenarios, yellow scenarios, red scenarios, and black scenarios, and they add more difficulties as they go. The first main difficulty is the approach strips get shorter. So on the green ones, it's very easy because they're taller, so you have more room to play with the approach strip if you're messing that up and it's just moving down too fast. Whereas on the reds and the yellows and the blacks, you have a lot less leeway there, so you have to be more careful. Not only that, but on the approach strips of the harder colors, there are these black dice where if you roll, you have to add more airplanes. The airplanes are kind of the traffic in front of you before you can land. So you have to add more of those in there. And then you also have a kerosene track that you can add into the game, which is your fuel, which you have to place a dice there. Otherwise, you got to run out of your fuel by the end of the game. Plus, there's wind that you can add. Plus, there's an intern that you can take on to make it more difficult. Plus, you can ice the road so that it makes the braking more difficult before you're in. So there's a lot of ways to make an already difficult game, fun, but difficult game, truly, truly very difficult. So there's a lot to explore in this small box.
I like how it's just very technical and just very specific about like being a pilot or co-pilot or flying airplanes. You're learning all about this and kind of introduces you to that idea of like, oh, yeah, maybe this is what pilots deal with. Yeah, obviously it's simplified, but I don't know, maybe it's a little complicated to me.
My favorite thing about this game is the no talking. We add that as a house rule in a lot of co-op games that we have to kind of not have that quarterbacking happen in games. So I like that it's already implemented as a main rule, main function of this game. It does take the issue that I have normally with rolling dice and makes it a little bit more fun because the fact that I'm bad at rolling makes it more of a challenging game because we're working together and we can't speak. What did you not like about this game?
I'd probably say like the onboarding of it, right? Because the first couple games you play, you know, you make that one move, like, yeah, you can read the book all day, like any game. You can read the book, memorize it, but when you actually start playing, you're like, oh, that's what that meant. Like, oh, okay, we lost, reset. I think there's a lot of resets that can happen or probably do happen for like in the very beginning. But so just that I don't know, that a lot of losing in the beginning is what I'm not a fan of.
I already mentioned it when we were going through everything. I just think that everything is too small. I mean, we're not horrible with it. We don't have like super fat fingers, but like some people who may have bigger fingers or people who may not have the best dexterity of moving things around, especially packing away if you accidentally didn't see something not make it into the bag or not make it into the box. And the next time you go to open it, you're like, oh, well, that sucks. It's such a fun game and a fun concept. This is one that I would have liked to have a deluxeified version with a little bit better pieces.
Overall, in terms of the theme, the production value, I think it's all great. The different pieces are unique. It adds on, it builds. So it's one of those cooperatives that I think I'll get into more. Overall, I'll give this 7.
Overall, I really enjoyed this game. For a 2-player game, it's fun. I wish it could be more. I don't know how that they would do that with the mechanics of this game. I do wish the production quality was a little bit better, but it doesn't bring it down that much because it is a lot of fun to play. And I do like all the modules that can enhance it and change it and mix it up. And you go from an easy flight to a hard flight. So I like all of that. So overall, I'm gonna give it an 8. And that was our review of Sky Team.
What'd you think? You ready to bring your game night to new heights? Let us know in the comments below.
And if you're enjoying our content, please like this video and subscribe to our channel.
Until next time, I'm Lee.
And I'm Kenny. I go party like a board gamer.